Yeah, when you're young, you can basically eat an ice cream and you grow strong. Or you can just look at a piece of meat and you gain muscle. When you become older, you have to go out of your way to ingest your protein. So if you don't use it, you lose it. If you don't do some sort of exercise or strength training or whatever, your body decides that you don't need that much muscle. You're going to have to be tracking something. I'd rather you track your macros, not really ketones, right? We call that false ketosis. I can put ketones in my body. It doesn't mean that I'm producing them. You are really in ketosis if you produce those ketones yourself, right? They go with a simple is better, and you're gonna get like 90% of the results that you want by doing the fewest thing possible. You're on a diet, not on a culinary tour. So just stick to basics. Get like
body mind empowerment.
Get stronger, faster, smarter, quicker, friendlier, more helpful, more driven.
Everything the body needs.
Control your mind.
Welcome to the Body Mind Empowerment Podcast. I'm your host Simland, and our guest today is Luis Villasenoir. Luis is known as DarthLuiggi online, and he's the founder of the KetoGains subreddit and website. He's been doing the ketogenic diet for nearly 18 years, if I'm correct, and he's successfully built an amazing physique with it. So, Luis, I want to welcome you to the show, and I'm glad to have you here.
Thank you, Sim, for having me.
Yeah, I think like you're really one of the living legends of the ketogenic diet, because there really isn't anyone else who has been doing this for so long. So how long has it actually been?
Yeah, you got it right. About 18 years now, consistently. Of course, people always ask me if I haven't eaten a carb in 18 years. Of course, I do have like some deviations. It's normal. It's very much like someone who is not doing keto will probably do keto 5-6 days in a year. I also go out of keto on average, I'd say 5-6 days in a year, and very much on purpose. Like I want to eat some chocolate cake or whatever. Yeah. Like if the occasion really is worth it, I may go out of keto for a meal. Basically, not really. It's not something that I go for a whole week, just for a single meal.
Yeah, but you still kind of maintain, let's say, a state of nutritional ketosis almost all the time, basically.
Exactly. Yeah, that's basically my way of life.
That's cool. So what got you into ketosis?
Very much I did it at first without knowing that it was actually ketosis. I was more so trying to follow a classic bodybuilding cutting diet, which as most people already know is just eating super low carb in the way that you don't eat starches. You eat lots of green vegetables. You eat protein, basically broccoli and chicken, rice, right? No rice, just broccoli and chicken. Yeah. Trying to find out more the science behind it, and I started reading about the ins and outs, the whys and hows, and I started a little bit of research on internet. At the time, we didn't have Reddit, and so I'm talking about late 1999, 2000, and there were bulletin boards, and there was a bulletin board regarding bodybuilding. And there was one particular, I don't even remember the name, it was very much like IRCC chat, where even Lyle McDonald participated. So at the time he was finishing, or had just finished his book, The Ketogenic Diet. And I remember that someone pointed me to that book, which was very basically the Bible, or in my heart, it's the Bible of a ketogenic diet for recomposition purposes. And that basically, that's what got me into keto.
Yeah, that's you're so correct in the sense that keto has become very popular within the last few years only, and before that you really had to dig very deep into finding out the information of how to do it, and
exactly.
people were even skeptical about whether or not you can build muscle. And when you showed up in the scene of, whoa, I've been doing it for like 12 years, and then people were like, okay, maybe there is something there that can actually work. So how did you see your performance change after the first periods of starting keto?
It's quite funny, even like because I didn't really start with some precognition or preconceptions. For me, it was a very natural process. What I see normally is people, for example, who are bodybuilding or strength training or doing performance type sports, hear about keto about a fat loss diet or the magic cutting diet that normally you hear right now, how it's being popularized, right? To lose fat quickly. So, but they also hear the negatives of it, that you're going to lose strength and power. So they come already with this mindset. So it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Yeah.
Whereas in my case, I was already sort of doing a low-carb diet. I always eating sort of a paleo protocol. From my grandfather's side of the family, he's a hunter, and he's also a farmer in a way. He loves to do things for himself as a hobby. So he goes and hunts as a hobby. He plants the food he eats as a hobby. So every time I went and visited him, that also got into my mother's how she cooks and everything. So we always in my house ate it like sort of paleo style. So for me, the transition was not very hard in that sense. I also prefer to eat eggs, meats, some cheese, but mostly green vegetables. So I didn't really feel that much of a difference because I was never a super high carb person, right?
Mm-hmm.
But again, it didn't really hit me that hard because I never carved up.
Yeah.
At the start of the diet, of course, I read the recommended protocol that it's in the book, that it's a cyclical ketogenic diet, which is what some bodybuilders do, that entails carving up every weekend, for example. And I started following that protocol. I started doing a cyclical ketogenic diet. And actually what I found is that every time that I did the carb load, I felt lethargic, tired, bloated. So it was a feeling that I didn't like, but I had to do it because the book said that I had to do it, that I needed the carbs and the glucose to actually build muscle. I never liked the feeling. When I transitioned to the carb load, of course, then I felt tired and sluggish, etc. And then when I transitioned back into keto, that's when I felt energetic. So yeah, maybe I lifted a little bit more when I had more carbs in, but probably also due to the calories and the extra calories ingested, etc. But again, it's something that I didn't like. So what happened in my case is that I started to space more the carb loads. First, I was doing them every week as the book suggested. Then I was doing them probably every 2 weeks. Then every once a month. Then I probably just forgot about it, and I said I don't really need them. I'm not lifting more with carbs. I'm performing great without them. I don't feel tired, etc., etc., etc. With some adjustments that I did, and also of course another version of the carb load, which is called targeted ketogenic diet, which is the one I really use and I suggest to some clients, which is basically just adding a few extra carbs before training. And when I say few, I'd say between 5 up to 15 for average persons. Some high-end athletes may, of course, need a little bit more or much more, depending on the type of sports and duration of it. But again, I felt that I really didn't need them, and my performance really didn't suffer. So I just decided to not add them in any way.
Yeah, I was similar in your case as well. Like, I did start off with regular keto, then I did the cyclical version, and I did also agree that although the carb ups are, you get to consume a massive amounts of carbohydrates and calories while still losing body fat, but at the same time you do feel slightly sluggish, and your performance may actually suffer because of that. So yeah, those carb ups, they tend to get boring after a while, after you kind of satisfy yourself.
I haven't had a carb since 2004.
When did you start the KetoGains subreddit?
That was around 2006 to 2007. And it was very much because I frequented Reddit and I found that there was a keto board. So I found out that there were some people interested in actually doing the ketogenic diet for strength training, bodybuilding. And they were giving lots of either incorrect or conflicting advice. So I was very shy at first. I didn't like to post probably I wasn't sure that I even myself knew what I was doing. It was just my N1 experience that sort of went by what the book suggested, some little things against what Lyle McDonald suggested. But again, it was just my N1 experience. So after just commenting and helping some people, and people started to get results with my suggestions, the moderators of the board made me a mod as well. So I started helping more people officially. But what happened also was that my advice was sometimes a little bit conflicting to the regular ketogenic advice, because I suggested people to eat a little bit more protein, to not use percentages, rather use grams in accordance to lean weight and the objectives and the context of the people, etc. So again, if you see what I'm talking about, it went a little bit against what most people understood or understand what a ketogenic diet is, right? Following the ketogenic ratio, going not going high on protein, etc.
Yeah.
So what we decided to do is that they banished me to another forum, so that there was like the advanced version of keto that was not going to confuse the newbies or people who came, right, to avoid confusion. So we decided to say, go and create another forum where it's more for people who want to strength train, and then you can use your own protocol there, and so we don't confuse people. So that's how KetoGains was born.
Nice, nice.
I created KetoGains, and what I started to do is, because people always ask me the same questions, I decided to create like like a wiki where you already have the pre-answered most basic questions. And as always, this is something, an anecdote I like to tell. People always question me. And at the time, there were some answers I didn't know the correct answer to. So I got angry and went and researched, because I should have the answer, or should have a good theory of why this is happening or whatever. I cannot say something if I myself I'm not sure about, at least have a congruent hypothesis that makes sense and that is supported by science, because I am a nerd as well. So I need to know something. I cannot make things up. It doesn't go well by my ethics. So I started researching, buying books, asking some pro trainers or some doctors, even in some cases. I started to get, try to know people in the circles, not only on keto, but also people that are against keto, to get all the versions. And that's how the science-based aspect of KetoGains was born. That's also something we strive and we are very proud of. We always try to get everything evidence-based with actual hypotheses or the pros and cons of doing something. So because we understand that a ketogenic diet is not a panacea, it's not the best diet for everyone. Like some people will do very well on a ketogenic diet. Some people will do probably horribly wrong. But what we know is that the main, let's say, success from all diets, if you are a vegan, if you do paleo, you do high carb, is in most of them, the thing they have in common is eating whole foods, eating an adequate amount of protein, and somehow in their way being mindful of energy requirements.
So yeah, basically, there are definitely many different ways of doing keto, and a therapeutic ketosis isn't necessarily ideal for someone trying to build muscle and gain strength. So yeah, you definitely have kind of dissected yourself as a different way of doing keto. So what are like some of the differences between a regular keto diet and a KetoGains diet in terms of like macronutrient ratios?
So the first thing is that we don't use ratios. That's a word that is forbidden, because our body really doesn't use percentages. Our body has certain needs that are more so in relation to weight, and that's how actually science does it. Yeah, normally you will find, if you look at studies, you will find that when they talk about keto in percentages, but newer studies do accept that the requirement needs of macronutrients are based on weight of the person, especially protein, right? Because we cater to body recomposition, we ourselves prefer to use lean amount of weight. So we go by very much, even though people say that we are super high protein, If you look at our actual recommendations, they are very in line with what Dr. Finney and Bolek, some of the, as you know, the lead researchers on ketogenic diets, that's very much what they suggest, about 0.8 grams of protein per lean pound a person weighs. So they are very much in line with what they suggest. If you do a lot of strength training, we be on the safe side, and we recommend people to probably increase to 1 gram of protein per lean weight, per lean pound they weight. But that's about it. We don't really suggest people going higher. So I don't know why some people think that we are super high protein. That's actually quite less than the suggested recommendations in most strength training research, etc. Right? Then for carbs, it really much depends on the person. For someone starting a ketogenic diet, we probably suggest to stay between 20 up to 30 grams of net carbohydrates, and to prefer vegetables, especially green, because those are super fibrous. They will really not have that higher amount of carbs. They are not starches, and they are the most nutrient dense. We advocate also nutrient density. Macros are important, but also micronutrients as well, vitamins, minerals, electrolytes. And if you prefer green vegetables, there's a likely you will not be missing on the most important ones. So you don't really have to go out of your way to supplement. And then fat, we tend to say that fat is a lever. Fat should be very much in accordance to your main goals and context at the time. Like if you want to maintain weight, of course you're going to have to eat, or you need more energy, so you need to eat more fat. If you're someone who is doing lots of exercise, probably you need to go even more and increase higher. And if you want to lose body fat, calorie balance, it does matter on keto, even though some people say it may not. You actually have to reduce your energy intake for a while, especially so you want to burn your own body fat. So that's the main difference. It's we're not stuck in percentages, because we really are not aiming for brain health or the therapeutic approach of keto. What we want is optimal body composition.
Yeah, definitely. Like I feel as well, like the reason why people say that you are high protein, or they're afraid of this protein, is because of the ratios themselves. Like when you look at it, then like I mentioned, the actual amount of protein consumed isn't high in relation to, let's say, some other high protein diets or something. So it's still relatively low. And
there's also confusion that ketones have to be super high. And what we found, especially among people who have been doing keto for quite long, for example, in my case, you look at Rob Wolf, Mark Sisson, who are fit, who do lots of exercise in one way or another, is that as you go along and your body becomes more adapted to the use of ketones, you actually have less ketones in your blood at any given time. It doesn't matter if you go super high protein, if I go out of my way and consume only protein for a few days, or if I fast for 2 or 3 days, my ketone levels will be very much, in my case, at about, for example, 0.6, 0.8. I rarely go over 0.8. And again, Mark Sisson has found the same, Rob Wolf, Alessandro Ferretti, lots of researchers or people who advocate a ketogenic diet. It's very much the same. And the reason that, or our hypothesis, is very much because your body becomes more efficient at using ketones. So at any given time, ketones are a fuel source. So you're basically using them, producing them and using them at a constant rate, so they don't accumulate. On people who are new to a ketogenic diet, because their body is not that efficient at using that kind of fuel yet, they tend to accumulate. Also, probably if you have a higher body fat percentage, plus if you consume even a higher amount of dietary fat, then probably you can increase the rate of ketones you produce, again, because you are ingesting a lot of dietary fat, or probably you have a higher body fat to burn. But people who are, again, who have been doing this for quite a while, have a normal low body fat percentage and that don't ingest a lot of dietary fat, tend to have lower levels of ketones.
Yeah, totally. Like if you have low levels of body fat, then you're gonna have lower amounts of ketones in your blood because your liver isn't producing them that much, and you're more efficient with that's quite good. And also, like it goes against a lot of people on social media. They're posting of how high their ketones are, or they're so proud of it, but at the same time, like ketones themselves don't necessarily mean that you're keto adapted. They simply show that there are some ketones in your blood, but how well how well you're gonna use them for energy.
We call that false ketosis. I can put ketones in my body. It doesn't mean that I'm producing them. Yeah. So really, I'm not it's different to, or how I would say is, you are really in ketosis if you produce those ketones yourself, right? If I go out of my way and consume exogenous ketones, yeah, they will probably do something like give me energy, but those are not my ketones. I just borrow them. So I'm really not in ketosis. I'm I put ketones in my body, but those are not my ketones, right? Yeah. So in the case, for example, of losing body fat, it's not optimal. Because the ketones probably will help you with hunger. They probably will help you with electrolytes, because usually they come with an electrolyte formula. They will give me energy, of course. They are a source of energy, but they will not mean that I'm burning more body fat. Right. On the other hand, if I produce those ketones from my own body fat, then of course I'm losing body fat.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's true. That's definitely. And have you tried maybe using the breath meter? Have you seen any differences with that?
Yeah, but again, it's something that doesn't work very well in my case. I've had like 3 breathalyzers. Basically, the first, middle, and the latest version of Ketogenic. I use it not daily, but what I found in my case, for example, if I have higher ketone numbers after I have a fatty meal, or after I do strength training. Very much because it's supposed to be like that. If I ingest high fat, I burn a little bit of it afterwards. If I do some exercise, then my body is producing ketones as energy. So that's also why.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, makes sense.
First, we render fat.
So let's maybe talk about protein in more closer detail. Like, people think that protein is going to turn into sugar, and gluconeogenesis, like the F word of keto. So, what do you think about that?
So here's the deal. People think that protein is only used for muscles. Normally, that's when I tell someone to add some protein to their diet, especially when they report their numbers, and I see that they're ingesting 30, 40 grams a day, and we're talking about an adult. They are afraid of it because they think they're going to skew the ketogenic ratio, and then basically that means that all the extra protein they eat above that certain percentage is going to magically turn into glucose, and then they're going to get fat. And it really doesn't happen that way. You're going to gain weight if your caloric intake is over a certain amount. It doesn't matter if you basically eat 30 or 50 grams of carbs. Yes, I know about the insulin hypothesis, but again, it's an hypothesis, and you can lose weight eating 100 grams of 100% of your intake if were carbs, if you're still on a caloric deficit. So some people, are insulin resistant, and for them, keto is going to be a better way to lose body fat. They're going to feel better with it, probably not hungry, and that for myself also one of the best advantages of doing keto, like being not so hungry, because hungry will happen even if you're on ketosis. But again, most people will experience a reduction in hunger. So if you ingest, like I was saying, that protein is really not only used for muscles. Protein is also used for hormones, enzymes. A lot of bodily functions require protein, your bones, your skin. So people forget about that. We are basically, or human beings are a bag of proteins. So it's not just for muscle, it's for all your body. And you require a certain amount on a daily basis, because your body can store glucose as glycogen in your muscles and your liver. And your body will always require glucose, and then that's why you have gluconeogenesis, right? Your body can't store fat. That's why you become overweight. and you require fat again also for some as for its energy stored, and also for some functions of your metabolism. But your body really cannot store protein or amino acids. The only way you store protein is in your muscles. And because your body does require glucose and does require cell turnover and repair, what your body does is it basically takes out amino acids from your muscles if you don't give or feed a certain amount. And even though you may require a little bit less protein when you are on a ketogenic diet, because ketogenic diet tends to be muscle sparing, it can only be so much muscle sparing. You need a minimal amount. And that minimal amount, what we go for is very much what Dr. Finney and Bullock suggest, which is the point. They actually suggest like 0.75 or something, but we round up a little bit just for convenience. And that's why we suggest 0.8 grams per lean pound a person weight. Why lean pound? Because you don't want to feed your fat, right? Like, it's not the same if you say someone that weighs 300 pounds, you're not going to give that person probably 200 grams of protein. Probably that person only needs, let's say, 150 or 120, depending on the actual amount of body fat. It's not that much protein. And protein should be set again in grams, and then it's in stone. If you look at this in percentages, probably then it can be higher than the 25 that most people strive for when they use ratios. It could be probably 30 or 45, but it doesn't mean that once it goes out of the ratio, it will magically turn into glucose. The body makes glucose as it needs. So again, probably, and this is something that even Menno Henselman says, it's a suggestion from him, is basically, if as we know, there is a certain amount of protein that tends to become glucose. As we know, it's about 45% of protein can be transformed into glucose, right? It's 55, 60 gluconeogenic and about 40, 45 gluconeogenic. This is because some of the amino acids that compose protein can be transformed into glucose and some others cannot. Not all protein by itself will be transformed into glucose, only about 40%. But it doesn't happen that just because you eat 1 gram of protein, 40% of it will be transformed into glucose. It's not like that. It's, to put it in an easy way to understand, let's think that maybe only 40% of the protein you eat above your daily requirements can have a chance of being transformed into glucose. So a very easy way to actually calculate this would be to just use the 0.8 grams per lean pound you weigh, and then any amount of protein that you consume over that, you multiply that, it can be counted toward your daily carbohydrate intake. Make sense?
Right.
So if you actually look at those numbers, most people could be consuming, let's say, 120 grams of protein a day, which would be very much the optimal for building lean mass. And even if they ingested a little bit more, they would still be accounting that protein towards carbs at around 40, 50 grams of net carbs a day, considering they were ingesting 20 to 25. And going over 30 grams of carbohydrates a day doesn't kick you out of ketosis. You require probably 20 to 30 to enter ketosis. Once you're adapted, and also depending if you do exercise, most people can stay in ketosis between 40 to 50 grams. Why? Because your body uses your brain at least 30 grams a day for brain function. You will burn a little bit of it when you exercise, walk, etc. And if the rest of all your carbohydrates come from green vegetables, all of it will be used like you're not going to be consuming it just in one bolus. It will be throughout the day. So you have lots of time to burn it. It really won't affect negatively either ketosis nor body composition.
Large amounts of those amino acids that the body needs daily.
So I hope that explanation made sense, because it's a little bit hard to follow around. But the thing is, unless you're eating, like let's say 250 grams of protein a day in relation to your own body weight, I don't think it's really going to hinder or reduce importantly the rate of ketosis, or it's something that you have to worry about for fat loss. And this is something that I've done with lots of clients. I really never suggest to people to obsess about ketone numbers, because they tend to do so. And then like if you're going to be tracking something, I'd rather you track your macros, not really ketones, right? Especially when your goal is to lose body fat or to become stronger, etc. But I've had clients that are eating more protein than myself, like 180 grams or even 200 grams a day, and they have super high ketone numbers. So it's really because they're losing a lot of body fat. Again, body fat, when you burn it, produces ketones, right? And they are totally out of the ketogenic ratio numbers. In my case, people probably think that I ingest a lot of protein. My average would be 135, 140. Some days I may ingest probably 160, but the average is about 140 grams a day. That's not that much for someone my weight and size and activity level.
Yeah, totally. Like, so it basically means that most people aren't actually consuming enough protein on keto.
Especially women, and especially people who are over 35. There's also and the trend for me is very worrying, because a lot of people, especially for example our clients, are over 35, in average 40, and if you know the word sarcopenia, right? Sarcopenia, for those that are hearing and are not familiar with it, it's basically means how you lose lean mass as you age. It's called age-related sarcopenia, and this happens mainly for two reasons. One, because you are not really exercising that much, and the body is very efficient at what it needs or what it doesn't. So if you don't use it, you lose it. If you don't do some sort of exercise or strength training or whatever, your body decides that you don't need that much muscle. So basically, it reduces it and uses those amino acids for other functions. And then the second one is because as you age, you become leucine resistant. Very much like you become insulin resistant, or you can become insulin resistant, you can become leucine resistant. This is a normal process, and leucine is a master signaler to build muscle or to increase lean mass. It's very much like a switch. So by ingesting the protein, you turn on the leucine signal, or the master switch to give your body the signal to start building lean mass. As we age, we become leucine resistant, and we need more leucine to build muscle. Right. So let's say that 100 grams on average, more so, let's go like this. Like on average, 25, 30 grams of any kind of animal protein usually has about 2 to 3 grams of leucine. It has been found in studies that about 2 grams of leucine is what your body actually needs to turn on the muscle protein signal, right? Synthesis. As we age and we become more leucine resistant, we don't need that anymore too. We may need 3 or 4 or 5 grams of leucine. So we actually need to ingest more protein to turn on the muscle protein synthesis. Right. So that's one of the reasons why I'm really a little bit worried about some of the protein recommendations that I see people giving, especially if you are over 35. You want to maintain muscle, not just to become muscular, because muscle is your health pension as you age. What happens when you are old and you fall? You can break some bones. The more muscle you have, it's like a cushion. And also you will be able to do or do the same things that you're doing now when you're 25 or 35. If you have more muscle when you are 60 or 70. There's no reason, or in my case, I view it like this. Why the hell do I want to live up to 90 years if I'm going to be wheelchair bound? I'd rather live to 80 or 75, but being able to to live my life fully and do all the things that I'm doing right now, and not be like sitting on a chair and need to have a nurse that wipes my ass, right?
Yeah, it's true. Like definitely most of the age-related diseases like let's say cardiovascular diseases and mobility issues and joint issues, they're all related to sarcopenia as well. And
Exactly.
It's actually more important to keep exercising and to keep doing resistance training and eating enough protein as you age, more so than you're young, because you're more fragile, in a sense. You're becoming more fragile as you age.
Yeah, when you're young, you can basically eat an ice cream and you grow strong. Or you can just look at a piece of meat and you gain muscle. When you become older, you have to go out of your way to ingest your protein. And it's very funny, but I don't know if it's something that you've seen with your parents. I see it with mine all the time, and with clients when I ask, it's very much the same. Our parents, and it will happen to all of us eventually, and our grandfathers. If you look at them on a daily basis, they tend to eat less and less animal-based products. It's very much because they're not hungry for them anymore. Like they lose their appetite. They always want to eat that or that piece of cake or etc. So their appetite for meat becomes smaller. I don't know why. That's something that I'm actually quite curious. Probably it's habits. I don't know exactly the reason. But again, your body becomes resistant to leucine. You become less active. You eat less protein. So it's like a self-fulfilling prophecy where you are yourself letting go, right? Like you let yourself go into that state. Yeah. Whereas if you see some active athletes, even at their old age, who actively monitor their protein intake, their exercise, etc., like for example, Frank Zane, who was a famous bodybuilder or is a famous bodybuilder, or some other older athletes who do even triathlons or who are sprinters or whatever, even at their 60 years, they have, of course, not the same physique as when they were 30, but they have maintained a very, they have maintained at 80% of their body by monitoring their whole foods, and probably with a ketogenic approach, I'm sure this can be even improved.
Come with me if you want to lift.
Yeah, I totally agree, right? Like thinking that aging is an excuse or thinking that aging is inevitable is also like a very self-fulfilling prophecy as well. Like, is it because people have lower growth hormone as they age because of the age, or is it because they're not exercising enough? Like there's this difference between having lower growth hormone and lower muscle protein synthesis because of being older or because of not exercising or not stimulating those hormones. So
exactly,
like potentially,
and it makes sense. Like from an evolutionary perspective, those people have probably already done their work. They've already procreated. They already make sense because they have already procreated. They already done their job. So it's time for them to go to their second function, would be taking care of the grandchildren or, doing other things. Right. But again, if you actually eat adequately, keep doing some kind of strength training, keep active, again, use it or lose it. You keep using it, then you're telling your body you still want it. So the body will respect that. And the body is very wise in this aspect. If you sit all day long and you just watch TV, eventually you will start to lose lean mass. It's more so, again, if you don't eat properly. But even if you are 70 years old, just look at some people or some cultures where the elderly are participating and are active in the community, where they still go to work and they still probably work in the harvest, or they also hunt, etc. Like probably look at the Maasai or look at the Aborigines in Australia, where the elderly are actually teaching how to hunt, and they participate in the hunt. And you look at their bodies, they are still very much in, I would not say in their prime, but they look very much like their young peers.
Yeah, that's true, definitely. So, like we've been talking about protein and such, but have you paid attention to this recent experiment Jimmy Moore did with John Levansky, of where they consume like 3-to-1 ratios of protein to fat?
Well, the thing I'm just going to say that I respect Jimmy, but that was not really an experiment. He didn't really follow Dr. Ted Naiman's protocol. That he should have eaten first much less protein, not that much. Second, he should not have eaten that much body fat, a dietary fat. Again, I don't think that was a very well done experiment. That's probably my main thought in that regard.
Yeah,
like
probably.
And again, depending on what the or what's the purpose of you doing that. If you do it if there is a crash diet that actually works for, I'd say 95% of the population, and the other 5% it doesn't work due to adherence issues, is what is called a PSMF protocol, which is a protein sparing modified fast, where you basically just eat protein and some vegetables. And this is both a bodybuilding approach and therapeutic approach. It is used widely on gastric bypass doctors, where they are going to do an operation, or any other fat loss operation where they reduce either the size of your stomach or the size of your bowels, etc., where they put very overweight patients in this protocol for a few weeks prior to the operation to make them lose as much body fat as possible before the operation. And again, it's a very well proven and tried protocol, where you increase protein to a certain amount and you have the client eat just protein either in liquid or solid form with minimal amount of fat, but do add nutrients. And this is also protein used pre-contest by bodybuilders to get to their leanest, and it works for everybody. Right. So again, this is a protocol for rapid fat loss. It's not sustainable. It shouldn't be used for more than 1-2 weeks without a feed or without medical supervision. This is something that I even myself don't put my clients on. Only those who actually know what they're doing, for example, the ones that are going to be doing a bodybuilding contest, that's something that we do with constant checkups, but that's something that we don't recommend for people to do just because. But in the case of Jimmy, he reported some other issues regarding blood glucose, etc. Again, I don't think that the experiment was something done very well. But again,
so the protein sparing modified fast is basically like the chicken breast and broccoli diet,
in a way, or you could also do it with beef or etc. But yeah, that's a chicken breast and broccoli diet. You have to take some precautions because it's very nutrient depleting in a way, and also the adherence factor is horrible. It looks on paper very easy, but once you get to the 3rd or 4th day, it becomes like a core. And then what happens with a lot of people is losing fat is super slow for most people. As you know, 1 pound of body fat is 3,500 calories. So you don't really burn, even though if you are losing 1 pound a day, that pound is not just body fat. It's water, it's the weight of the food. There are a lot of factors. So it takes more than 1 week to actually lose 1 pound of body fat for most people. So what happens is very much, again, even with keto, you do the diet perfectly for 2 or 3 days. By the 4th, you are tired and you go and you have a cheat meal or whatever. And so you lose all the process that you actually had done in 1 week of hard work. So I'd for example, with my clients, what we do is it's better slow and steady and constant fat loss, rather than just go out of your way to put them in a very hard diet that will really only tire them both physically and mentally, and will cause some binges or other issues that then they will backtrack and lose all the progress.
Right. So what would be the macro, let's say, what would be the grams of protein you would consume on this diet?
On PSMF?
Yeah.
Well, it really depends, but for most people, you start at about 1.2 grams of protein per lean pound, and you increase depending on your level of leanness and the deficit you're planning to do, and even activity. I've seen some people even go as high as even 2.5 grams of protein per lean pound. So in my case, if I remember correctly, because there's even a calculator where you can sort of get your numbers, I would be consuming at about 250 grams at my highest my recommended amount would be about 200 grams of protein per day. And again, it's to actually eat that much, you have to use lots of whey shakes and so, because most people will not be able to actually eat that much protein.
Yeah.
And this is also something, now that we're talking about this, when people think that they have to eat lots of protein and that protein kick them out of ketosis, etc. If you actually look at what those people are eating, it's not whole foods, because it's so very hard to actually eat 200 grams of protein, and not the amount of protein by weight, but the protein macro. Like, I know, of course, there are outliers and there are people that will eat everything, but to actually get to 200, 250 grams of protein, look at the amount of food you actually have to eat. It's quite a lot. So unless you're having 2 or 3 whey shakes a day, or what I see some people actually do is that they're having protein bars. Right. So yeah, one protein bar is probably 20 or 35 grams of protein. They're having 3 of them. You know what's kicking you out of keto and what's reducing your ketone levels is a bar by itself, not the protein. Because those bars is very much like if you were eating a Snicker or a Mars bar with extra protein, but most of the ingredients are the same. You're still getting chocolate, you're still getting some sugar or sugar alcohols, which do affect at that amount, probably your ketone numbers, or even if it's fiber or whatever, those things for most people do affect ketone levels and insulin levels, etc. So it's not the protein. If you were eating just a beef steak or chicken, and even more so if you spaced it throughout the day, it would not happen. But again, don't blame the protein for what the sugar or the carbs is, right?
Yeah, it's like it's also easier to overeat those keto-friendly meal replacement bars than it is to overeat on steak. Like you can basically chum down like 5 bars without even blinking an eye. Well, but it's much more difficult.
Yeah, this is something that Rob Wolf calls. I think it's I don't remember the term, but it's like your palate gets tired of certain flavors. So if you look at even eating contests, that's why you look at the contestants. They try to change or bite on different flavors so they can win and keep eating. Like, they are eating probably hot dogs, and then they will munch on chocolate or something that has a different flavor, so they don't get tired of the same food and can keep eating. If you put like 1 kilo steak in your plate, you're not going to be able to eat it. But what happens even if it's the same amount of calories and the same volume of food, if you have half that amount of steak, but plus some bread, plus some dessert, you're going to be able to finish it all and even have space for an extra donut.
Yeah, that's so true. Like the more variety you have to choose from, the more you're likely to want to eat them as well, and the less you're gonna get sick of it. So it's
exactly.
Yeah.
There's still food, but I don't want to eat it.
But what about fat? If you've been talking about that, people can lose body fat, or they can reduce their fat intake at the expense of their body fat. So what would be like a safe margin of how low they can go?
It really depends on the person again. Like the lowest, as per studies, suggested dietary fat for most people would be, if you want a certain number, it's about a 0.35 grams of fat per pound the person weighs. So at the lowest, or on average, it really boils down to about 45 grams per person. That's like a safe margin. But again, it's something that I don't suggest. Like, it's better to lose fat on a constant, slow rate, so that there are a lot of physiological and also psychological factors that come to mind. Otherwise, you get the classic JoJo dieting, right? You probably lose weight fast, but then you also regain it faster, and then you go over. In the end, you don't get to the way you were before. You probably get a little bit fatter. Right. So to avoid this, in most cases, it's better to just have a constant, slower rate of fat loss, so that your body and your mind gets used to that new person, right? So there is like an adaptation process. It's called homeostasis. For example, in my case, I've never I was never lean all my life. I was fat as a kid. Then I was very thin as a teen. Like I went through a period of anorexia for doing things completely wrong. But then when I, let's say that I sort of maintained, and when I started doing keto, and so I maintained about 15% body fat for quite a few years. Then I started doing things way better. And then I maintained 13%, sorry. And now I can maintain without actually counting calories when I don't, between 10 to 12%. But if I want to go lower for a photo shoot or whatever, I do have to count. And I've seen this happen to quite a lot of people. Like, oh, you are 20% body fat and you can maintain that perfectly. Okay, let's drop down probably to 16, 50% with a diet for, I don't know, in a period of 2 months. Okay, now let's maintain there, and let's see how you can actually maintain with mindful eating, changing habits, etc. Okay, you can maintain that, then probably we can go for another round of fat loss to get you probably to 30% or 12%. Okay, and as you go, so on and so forth, and it's much better for the person, unless again they have a date that they have, a certain date that they have to lose a body fat or to get to a certain body fat percentage, like they want to do a bodybuilding contest or something. But otherwise, for normal people, let's say, it's better to go slower but constant.
Yeah, that's very interesting, because we all have like these psychological images about what kind of a body image we have of ourselves, and we have to kind of change. There needs to be a psychological shift as well if you recomposition your body.
Yes, and also that's something very that happens to lots of people. They, especially those that were most of their life overweight, they look at themselves in the mirror and they don't recognize themselves. And also, people don't recognize themselves, and the person, and they treat them quite differently, usually for the best. But like I've had some clients that tell me, everybody tells me I look like sick, right? Because they lost so much weight. But if you actually look at them, they look great. But then they let themselves be like, how do you say it? Like they let people get over their head, and they don't feel comfortable, and then they self-sabotage. So they actually gain weight on purpose because they don't recognize themselves and probably don't feel that comfortable, because their identity is being fat. And now that they lost a lot of weight, like they don't recognize themselves in the mirror and they don't receive the same attention. Or in some cases, some people got fat because it was like a protective measure. Like probably, it's sad to say, but some people were abused or treated very bad. So by becoming fat, they were like, people ignore them. And now they're receiving lots of attention and they're not used to that.
Yeah, that's definitely like a whole issues with not only just metabolism but also psychology.
So I think it's very funny, but when I became a coach, I thought I was going to be doing macros and training, etc. Right? That was going to be my primary job with helping people. Actually, if you are a coach, you're more of a psychologist. Like the macros and the training is just the starting point, but to have real success with your clients, you have to get to know them, understand what their struggles are, but it's more of a psychological thing. You have to help them to improve and change habits, and to endure certain processes that are not just eat this, don't eat that. That's the easy part. Right. The hard part is actually leading them to change some habits and to improve their lifestyle.
Yeah, that's true. So what does your own personal routine look like, nutrition routine?
Nutrition-wise, I'm very boring. Like I usually eat about the same things every day. So like either I count macros or I don't count macros. And because by not counting, it means that I already eat the same thing, so I don't have to count them. So like let's say that from on weekdays, I very much eat the same. So I'd say like for breakfast, I'd have like 3 eggs and some ham and avocado or some cream when I have it. Spinach. I always try to have some green veggies. For lunch, chicken, beef, pork, preferably lean parts, but always some of that, or salmon or tuna or sardines. And by dinner, I either repeat lunch or breakfast. So again, some eggs, or again, more fish. I always try to have at least 2 or 3 times a week some fish, especially either salmon or sardines. I prefer myself like turkey or chicken, but I also try to have a little bit of red meat here and there. And I also try to have some green vegetables for nutrients. Mainly, I usually just eat spinach and, of course, avocado and zucchini. Here in Mexico, we have a thing called chayote, which is very much like a super low-carb potato that is super high on vitamin C and other nutrients. So it also gives you a lot of food density. I'm not a big fan of dairy, not because it's bad or something, but very much because outside of sour cream, or we have here in Mexico very much a thing called labne, which is like labne, like Greek yogurt, but it doesn't have any carbs on it. I use that sporadically. Dairy, outside of that, I don't consume it that much because of the calories. So I like to keep my calories on a set number, and I'd rather have the extra calories from the fat that comes with my meat or avocado and such. But that's basically what I eat on I'd say on a daily basis. But when I go out with friends or family or so, like I just have some salad with grilled meat or like the like. And for training, I follow a full body workout. I do powerlifting and bodybuilding. So it's called power building, but I do focus more on the Olympic lifts. So I try to, right now I'm not doing a classic bodybuilding split where I only train one body part a day. I sort of a mix. I have 3 routines, so I try to mix them, and I try to hit all major muscle parts at least 3 times a week.
Well, yeah, sounds really solid and so simple. Like keto is so simple and minimalistic. You're gonna get most of the results from just a few things.
Yeah, very much I'm sure you know Martin Bergham of Lean Gains, right? Or Andy Morgan from Rip Body. So I tend to talk lately with Andy Morgan, and he's very much like Marty. They go with simple is better, and you're gonna get like 90% of the results that you want by doing the fewest thing possible. Like everything else is details and minutiae, and I always see people that they obsess about the last 10%, and the biggest changes come from doing the basics. Like if you do just squats, deadlifts, bench press, you do pull-ups, you're probably gonna get a full body workout, especially for those that don't have that like a lot of time, and you're gonna get a great physique. Okay, you want to go to bodybuild and probably be get a pro card or whatever, then probably you need to do a little bit more aesthetic work. But for 90% of the people that just want to look good naked, you only need like 4 or 5 exercises. All the other are probably the top of the cherry of the cake. You don't need to spend that much time in the gym. You don't need that much variety, especially if you're doing things on your own. And for that, it also comes into the same. Like I have a saying that I tell my clients when I see that they're overcomplicating things. It's, you're on a diet, not on a culinary tour. So just stick to basics. Get like, how complicated can it be to get some beef, get some eggs, get some green vegetables, put them on a pan, salt them, and eat them. You don't need fancy recipes. You need high quality food. And if you eat that high quality food, you will not have any problem. You don't have to go out of your way to supplement and buy supplements or expensive supplements. You don't need BCAAs. You don't need, vitamins. All of that is going to be covered with high quality food.
Yeah, that's so true. Like people get caught up with, oh, I'll have to, meet certain expectations and get caught up in the details. So yeah,
I don't know what to do.
So like maybe can you talk more about the KetoGains bootcamp as well, where people can actually learn from you and learn the tricks of the trade in a sense?
Sure. So normally we started with one-on-one coaching, but we found out that like this is an experiment I did like 2 years ago. People who were coaching with me also asked me a lot of the same questions, and they wanted to learn from me, etc. So I did a small experiment where I had 5 people do the same training, because again, simple is better. So unless you want to actually develop certain parts of your body, like someone who is going to actually participate in a bodybuilding composition, most people will actually just need 5-6 exercises and improve upon them. Like that's how you become stronger. You don't need that much variety. You need consistency and constantly increase the weight you're lifting, right? So I did a basic program, and I had these persons, each one with different macros, of course, but we did sort of an online bootcamp, like in a secret group on Facebook, where I answered all the questions they had about training, nutrition, etc. So that evolved to what the bootcamps are right now, which is very much, imagine like a CrossFit community in a way, where it's a mini course in strength training, nutrition, with an emphasis on low carb and keto and whole foods, where we evaluate each person as an individual, and we prepare and give them each one their macros for their particular goal, either it be fat loss or recomposition or gain muscle. So that is personalized, but we all follow the same training routine. So we have 3 levels: novice for people who have never done any sort of strength training in their life, then beginner for people who want to have a quick workout, but they don't want to spend that much time in the gym or have limited equipment. And then we have the intermediate advanced, which is for people who have been training for quite a while, who have access to a full gym, who want to go, to the next level of fitness. So what we do with in the bootcamp is, again, we evaluate the person as an individual. We give them their nutrition and their macros. We all do the same strength training program, which is periodized, like it's not the same. We change it week after week in one way or another. And all the while, we teach them about the basics of nutrition, the importance of whole foods, how to create and maintain healthy dietary habits, and also how to live on, in real life. It's very much different to actually tell them, eat these amounts of protein, or when you go out to a dinner or to a business meeting or whatever, how do you actually live the fitness lifestyle in real life? So we teach them all these tricks in a closed environment where everybody can help and support every other one in the group. So it's very much like a mini course in nutrition with training and macros, etc. So it has become extremely popular, and now we're coaching over 500 persons per module.
Wow.
So it's and I love to say that people just don't do one bootcamp. They usually start at the novice and stay in their intermediate for at least like 6 to 8 modules. We have people who have been with us for 3 years now. So they do one bootcamp after another, because that's also another strength. We don't repeat a bootcamp. Like even if you do one after another, the training is totally different because it's progressive. We do change the routine in one way or another. And we also experiment ourselves. Like for example, we may do one that is just full body. Then another one, we ask the clients if they want to try bodybuilding-like routine. So the next phase could be a bodybuilding-like routine where we just train one muscle group or specialize in one thing or another. Then probably we do a mock power building competition, or so we actually do change things depending on what the clients want to experiment, if they're going to continue. So it's a great thing, and also a great way to learn the basics of nutrition in a health environment as sports people.
It sounds really good, and it sounds very comprehensive, and especially like if you have people who have stayed so long. So where can people learn more about it?
So they can go right now to KetoGains.com or KetoGainsBootcamps.com. That's one way to get into our newsletter or to find more about it. We're basically starting one this is the second week of the new one. So in 4 weeks, in about July 6th, I think we're starting the new one. They last 6 weeks plus 1 week of rest, we call it, or deload. And again, they go one after another. So we have like 8 boot camps per year. So if they cannot join on the start date, we can always accommodate them probably on the next one, or they can reserve a space.
Sounds good, yeah. And where can people learn more about you specifically if they want to contact you?
Yeah, also again on KetoGains. Everything that you see KetoGains on the web is us. So it's on Twitter, it's KetoGains. On Instagram would be KetoGains. If you go to Facebook, just type KetoGains as well. We have the Spanish and the English version of the group. If you prefer Spanish, you can go to KetoGains en Español. And I'm also there. I'm fluent in both languages. We also have a KetoGains Spanish team. So yeah, everything that you see KetoGains on the web, it's us.
Awesome. Well, really enjoyed talking with you, Luis. And I'm going to ask you my last question, which is, what would be this one piece of advice or a habit that you wish you'd adopted sooner that improved your body and your mind?
So I would say probably, that's a trick question. That's a very important one. I'd say always stay hungry, and not hungry for food, but very much for information. Like not be content with what you have today, but try to improve every day on something. Probably like it can be applied to everything, like to strength training, to how you did in your diet. Like if one day you failed, doesn't matter. You can always improve the next day. If you fail in strength training, you can always improve the next day. If you fail with someone, you can always make up and be a better person.
Yeah, that's powerful advice, and I believe that's how we also evolve as a society as well. When people try to constantly improve themselves on their individual level, so that's good advice there.
Yes.
Awesome. Well, thanks, Luis, for coming on the podcast, and really enjoyed talking with you. I'll definitely pay more attention to what's happening on the keto sphere as well with KetoGains and such. So yeah, I'll see you in the future.
Thank you, Sam, for having me. It was a great talk.
Awesome.
That's it for this episode of the Body Mind Empowerment Podcast. If you want to support us, then I would greatly appreciate it if you could leave us a review on the iTunes or the other social media platforms. Definitely check out the show notes for the topics that we discussed in this episode. Thanks for listening. My name is Seem. Stay tuned for the next episode. Stay empowered.
Come with me if you want to lift.